Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that I've learned from years of living, loving, and watching how people interact with each other. Respect is not something that just falls in your lap. It's something you demand, it's something you establish, and it's something you maintain by the boundaries you set in your life. When it comes to relationships, especially between men and women, boundaries are not walls. They're standards. And standards are what separate those who get played from those who get respected. Ladies and gentlemen, let me break something down for you because too many people get this confused and it ends up costing them their respect, their peace, and sometimes even their heart. The first boundary you've got to set with a man is this: never allow him to confuse access with privilege. And I need you to really let that sink in because it might sound simple, but it carries a lot of weight. You see, access means he can call you, he can text you, he can see you when you agree to meet, but privilege, that's something different. Privilege means he's earned the right to the deeper parts of you. And the biggest mistake I see too many women make is they give out privilege too quickly to a man who's only proven he can show up, but not that he can stay consistent. You've got to teach a man the difference. You cannot hand him everything you've got just because he showed up with a smile and a little bit of charm. Charm will fade, good looks will fade, sweet words will fade, but effort, consistency, and investment, that's where respect comes from. When you give a man privilege without him doing the work, you're teaching him that you don't value yourself enough to require more from him. And believe me, men are quick learners. The moment he realizes he can get all of you with very little effort, he's going to start giving you even less effort. That's just how it goes. People respect what they work for, and people take for granted what's handed to them for free. I'll give you an example. Imagine you walk into a store and everything valuable is sitting on the front shelf with a sign that says, "Take what you want, no charge." You're not going to treat those items like they're special. You're not going to handle them carefully. You might grab it, you might not, but you won't see the value because it costs you nothing. But if you walk into a high-end store and that store has the good stuff behind glass cases guarded with a price tag that makes you stop and think, you start to value that item before you even own it. Why? Because you know it's rare, it's valuable, and you've got to put in something to get it. That's the same principle with you. Access is free. You can let him call. You can let him see your smile. You can let him take you out for dinner. But privilege, that's locked behind a standard, and he has to work for it. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you've got to play games. I'm not saying you have to make a man jump through hoops just for the fun of it. What I am saying is that if you want to be respected, you cannot hand out the deepest parts of yourself, your heart, your body, your dreams, your loyalty, until he has proven that he knows how to handle them. Every time you lower that boundary, you're not only letting him in too soon, but you're teaching him that what you carry isn't worth the effort. And I know that's not true because every woman in this room carries something powerful, something valuable, something worth protecting. Men, at their core, respect structure. They might not like rules, but they respect them. Think about sports. Every man knows the game only works because of boundaries. The field has lines, the game has rules, and the players follow them. Why? Because without boundaries, the game falls apart. Relationships work the same way. If you don't create boundaries between access and privilege, there's no game to respect, no structure to honor. He has to know that privilege is reserved for the man who consistently shows up, not just the one who appears when it's convenient. Too many women confuse chemistry with consistency. Just because the chemistry is good doesn't mean he deserves privilege. Just because he makes you laugh, just because the conversation flows, doesn't mean he's earned a permanent seat in your life. Chemistry is easy. It happens naturally. Consistency, though, that's rare and it takes effort. That's what you wait for before you hand out the keys to your heart. If he's showing up when he says he will, if he's putting in time and attention, if he's proving he can respect your boundaries, that's when privilege comes into play. Let me say this plain: stop rewarding potential. Potential is what he could be, but it's not who he is right now. You don't hand a man privilege because you hope he'll change, because you see what he might become someday. No, you reserve privilege for the man who is showing you effort, growth, and respect today. Because if you keep rewarding potential, you'll spend your life waiting on somebody to become something they never had the intention to be. And while you're waiting, you're being drained, disrespected, and disappointed. Respect is tied to scarcity. Anything that's rare automatically commands more value. If every man gets full access to you without putting in work, then where's the rarity? Where's the specialness? But if you say, no, my time, my love, my loyalty, those things are not free. Those are privileges reserved for the man who truly earns it. Suddenly you separate yourself from the crowd. And when you separate yourself, you stand out. That's when a man looks at you and says, hold up, she's different. I can't play with her the way I play with everybody else. And that right there is the foundation of respect. So don't let anybody fool you into thinking that setting this boundary is being difficult or hard to get. It's not about games, it's about value. Men play games with what they don't respect. Men invest in what they do respect. And when you show him that access and privilege are not the same thing, you teach him how to treat you right from the very beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that will save you years of heartache and confusion. Closed mouths don't get fed, and unspoken boundaries don't get respected. Too many people walk around expecting the other person to just magically know what they want, what they don't like, and what they won't tolerate. And when that other person doesn't live up to the unspoken rules, suddenly there's hurt feelings, arguments, and disappointment. But here's the truth: a man is not a mind reader. He is not going to automatically know your expectations unless you make them clear. Communication is the foundation of respect, and without it, you leave the door wide open for misinterpretation, crossed lines, and wasted time. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're saying, well, Steve, if he really loved me, if he really cared, he'd just know. No, he wouldn't. And that's not a flaw in him. It's human nature. Think about your job, your friendships, even your family. Every single relationship requires communication to work. If your boss wants something done, they don't just sit back and hope you figure it out. They give instructions, they set deadlines, and they clarify the expectations. Why? Because without communication, there's chaos. If it's true in business, it's true in love. You can't just expect a man to meet your standards when you've never told him what those standards are. The boundary of communication starts with honesty. You've got to be willing to say what you mean what you say, and stand on it. Don't sugarcoat, don't downplay, and don't stay silent just because you're afraid he might walk away. If speaking your truth makes him walk, then you saved yourself time, because any man who can't respect your voice was never going to respect your heart. You have to remember that your silence benefits him, not you. The less you say, the more room he has to assume, and most of the time his assumption is going to lean in his favor, not yours. I've seen so many women bite their tongue because they don't want to come off as too much or too demanding. But let me tell you something: a man will respect you far more when you communicate your standards than when you keep quiet and let resentment build. Because here's the reality: men actually appreciate clarity. They might not always like what you're saying, but they respect knowing where you stand. Uncertainty is confusing. Silence is confusing. Clear communication, though, eliminates confusion. Think about it like this: if you're driving to a new place and you don't have GPS, you're just guessing. You might take the wrong turn, end up in the wrong neighborhood, and waste gas going in circles. But when you've got clear directions, you know exactly how to get to the destination. That's what communication does in a relationship. It provides direction. It tells him what roads are off limits, what turns lead to respect, and how to get closer to you. Without those directions, don't be surprised if he gets lost. And don't be surprised if you end up frustrated because he didn't magically guess the way. Another part of communication is delivery. It's not just what you say, but how you say it. You don't have to yell, you don't have to nag, you don't have to lecture. You can communicate boundaries with calm, firm, respectful words that leave no room for doubt. Men respond better to straightforwardness than they do to mixed signals. If you don't like him texting you only after midnight, say that. If you expect consistency in dates, say that. If you value loyalty, make that clear early on. Don't leave him wondering where the line is, because if he doesn't know, he will test it. Here's another truth: communication doesn't just protect you, it protects him too. It gives him a fair chance to rise to the occasion, because a lot of men, when they genuinely care, will adjust. They'll make changes. They'll step up once they know exactly what you want. But if you never communicate, you rob him of the chance to grow into the man you need. And when he fails to meet your hidden expectations, you blame him. But the truth is, you never gave him the playbook. You cannot expect someone to win a game when they don't know the rules. Now let's talk about consistency in communication. You can't just speak once and think the job is done. Boundaries are reinforced through repetition. If you set a standard and he slips, you remind him. If he keeps ignoring it, then you make a decision about whether or not he deserves access to you. But the important thing is, you don't stay quiet. Silence communicates acceptance, whether you mean it or not. If he raises his voice and you don't address it, you just told him it's okay. If he cancels on you last minute and you don't say anything, you just told him your time doesn't matter. Every time you let something slide, you're communicating too, but in the wrong direction. A lot of people avoid communication because they fear conflict. But let me tell you something, conflict avoided is respect lost. Because every time you choose silence to keep the peace, you're really creating a storm inside yourself. That storm eventually comes out as bitterness, frustration, and resentment. A man can feel that energy even if you don't say a word. It's better to have a small, uncomfortable conversation than a big, explosive one later. Communication is not about nagging. It's about clarity, and clarity builds respect. Ladies and gentlemen, the power of your voice is greater than you think. Your voice sets the tone for how a man treats you. If you speak up with strength, he knows you value yourself. If you stay silent, he assumes you'll accept whatever he gives you. The choice is yours. A boundary not communicated is not a boundary, it's just a wish. And wishes don't get respected. Boundaries spoken clearly and confidently do. Ladies and gentlemen, I need you to understand something real important. Boundaries don't mean a thing if you don't back them up with consistency. Anybody can say what they want. Anybody can talk about what they expect, but if your actions don't line up with your words, people will always test you. And when they see that you don't stand firm, when they realize you bend and fold depending on the situation, that's when respect disappears. Men, in particular, are always paying attention to whether you mean what you say. And if you say it once but don't enforce it the next time, you've just taught them that your words are negotiable. Now hear me good, consistency is the glue that makes boundaries stick. Without it, your boundaries are just suggestions. You can't say, I won't tolerate disrespect, and then the next time he raises his voice, you stay quiet and pretend it didn't happen. You can't say, my time is valuable, and then accept being canceled on over and over without consequence. The moment you allow behavior that you said was unacceptable, you've sent a new message. And that message says, I don't really mean what I say. The problem is once that seed is planted, it's very hard to undo. Because people only take you as seriously as you take yourself. Think about it like raising children. You tell a child, don't touch that stove, it's hot. If the child touches it and you don't correct them, guess what? They'll touch it again. But if you're consistent with the correction every time, they quickly learn the stove is off limits. That same principle applies to grown men in relationships. If you don't consistently enforce your boundaries, he's going to keep pushing, keep testing, keep seeing how far he can go. And before you know it, you'll look up and wonder why he doesn't respect you anymore. Well, the answer is simple, because you didn't respect your own boundary enough to hold the line every single time. Now, let me be real with you. Consistency is not always easy. Sometimes your emotions will try to talk you out of it. You'll think, well, maybe this time it's not such a big deal. Or maybe I should just let it slide because I don't want to lose him. But here's the truth. Every time you let it slide, you're not protecting the relationship. You're weakening it. A man doesn't respect inconsistency. He exploits it. And if you're worried about losing him because you enforced a boundary, then he was never really yours to begin with. A man who respects you will respect your boundaries even when it's inconvenient for him. Consistency also builds trust. When you stick to your word, not only does he know you're serious, but you start building credibility with yourself. You start proving to yourself that your standards matter. And once you prove it to yourself, you carry yourself differently. Your confidence rises, your energy shifts, and men can feel that. They can feel when a woman is serious about her standards, and they can feel when she's just bluffing. Consistency communicates seriousness without you having to repeat yourself 100 times. I'll give you an example. Let's say you tell a man, I need consistency in communication. Don't go days without calling me. The first time he does it, you let it slide. The second time, you let it slide. By the third time, he knows you don't mean it. But imagine instead the very first time he disappears for days, you address it calmly but firmly. You say, that doesn't work for me. I expect consistency. If he does it again, you don't ignore it. You don't pretend it's okay. You act on it. Maybe that means you step back. Maybe that means you end the relationship. Whatever it means, you follow through. That follow through tells him, I don't play about my standards. And that's when respect clicks in his mind. Consistency isn't about being harsh. It's about being clear. It's not about punishing someone. It's about training them on how to treat you. And the truth is, men are wired to test limits. They test in small ways first. They'll show up late, cancel last minute, or say something slick to see if you react. If you don't, they know they've got room to play. But if you're consistent, they quickly learn that you don't bend just because of charm, chemistry, or potential. You bend for no one because your standards are not negotiable. That's powerful. Another thing about consistency is that it eliminates confusion. You ever notice how some people are unpredictable? One day they're fine with something, the next day they explode about the same thing. That unpredictability breeds chaos, and chaos kills respect. But when you're consistent, there's no guessing game. He knows exactly what line not to cross because you've made it clear and you've backed it up every single time. That kind of clarity doesn't just earn respect, it creates security. Men actually feel safer in relationships when they know exactly what's expected of them. Consistency also demands accountability. You can't expect him to respect boundaries that you don't hold yourself to. If you say, I want honesty, but you're not always truthful, then you're breaking your own consistency. If you say, I want effort, but you're accepting less from yourself, then you're teaching him to give less too. Consistency is not just about how you enforce your boundaries with him. It's also about how you live by your own values. When a man sees you walking in integrity, he knows you're not just talking, you're living it. And that kind of consistency commands respect on a whole other level. Let me tell you something else. Inconsistency is a magnet for games. If you've ever wondered why a man keeps playing with your emotions, why he keeps testing you, why he doesn't take you seriously, it's because he sees inconsistency. He sees that what you say today might not matter tomorrow. And as long as he sees that, he knows he's in control. But the moment you become consistent, the moment your actions line up with your words every single time, that's when the games stop. Because you've taken away the wiggle room. You've shown him that respect isn't optional, it's required. Ladies and gentlemen, the bottom line is this: a boundary without consistency is just wishful thinking. A standard without consistency is just a suggestion. If you want respect, you can't just set the boundary once, you have to enforce it every single time. And when you do, you'll find that the right man won't just respect your consistency, he'll admire it, because deep down men respect strength. And consistency is the clearest sign of strength you can ever show. Ladies and gentlemen, if there is one thing I could put on a billboard for every woman to see every single morning, it would be these words: know your worth. Because let me tell you something, if you don't know it, a man surely won't. If you don't recognize it, he won't recognize it either. And if you don't act like it, he's not going to treat you like it. Self-worth is the foundation that every boundary stands on. Without it, you'll set boundaries but break them. You'll ask for respect but accept disrespect, and you'll confuse attention for love. But when you understand your worth, when you carry yourself like a woman who is valuable, you automatically command a different level of respect. Now, here's the truth. Worth isn't something somebody else can give you. You can't expect a man, your friends, or even your family to hand you your value on a silver platter. Your worth was built into you the day you were born. You are already valuable, already worthy, already enough. But the problem is, too many people let the world talk them out of it. They've been told they're not good enough. They've been compared to someone else. They've been made to feel like they've got to settle just to be chosen. And so what happens? They start acting like their value is low, like they're on the clearance rack. But let me ask you this: have you ever seen luxury on clearance? No, because the price doesn't drop for what's valuable. And that's exactly how you have to see yourself. A woman who knows her worth does not beg. She doesn't beg for time. She doesn't beg for attention. And she sure doesn't beg for love. She stands tall in the knowledge that what she brings to the table is more than enough. A woman who knows her worth isn't afraid of being alone, because she understands that being alone with peace is far better than being with somebody who drains her spirit. The minute you start operating from self-worth, you stop chasing and start choosing. You stop saying, I hope he picks me, and you start asking yourself, is he even worthy of me? That's a whole shift in power right there. And let me tell you what happens when a man encounters a woman like that. He can't play with her. He can't half-step with her. He can't just throw her crumbs of his time or affection and expect her to take it. Why? Because she doesn't operate from desperation. She operates from abundance. She knows that her worth doesn't rise or fall based on how he feels about her. She knows that respect, love, and loyalty are not privileges she hands out to every man who says hello. They're reserved for the one who proves himself. When a man sees that kind of confidence, he's either going to rise up and meet the standard or he's going to walk away. And either way, you win because you don't waste time on someone who doesn't see your value. Now, here's something important to understand. Men are attracted to beauty, but they respect worth. Beauty might get you attention, but worth is what keeps you respected. I've seen beautiful women get disrespected because they didn't recognize their own value. And I've seen women who weren't considered the prettiest in the room command respect everywhere they go because their self-worth was undeniable. They carried themselves like queens, and people treated them like queens. That's the difference. When you know who you are, you don't have to announce it. You don't have to prove it. It shows in how you walk, how you talk, and how you live. Self-worth also means you don't negotiate your non-negotiables. Too many people treat standards like suggestions. They say, I won't tolerate lying, but then they forgive lie after lie. They say, I won't accept disrespect, but then they accept it with excuses. But when you truly value yourself, your boundaries become non-negotiable. You don't bend them just because you're lonely, just because he's handsome, or just because you feel chemistry. You hold firm because you know your worth is not up for debate. And here's the thing, when a man realizes that your standards aren't going to change, he has to make a choice. Either he steps up and grows or he steps out. And again, either way you win. There's something magnetic about a woman who knows her worth. She doesn't have to be the loudest in the room. She doesn't have to prove anything to anyone. Her presence speaks for her. People look at her and they see a woman who won't settle, who won't accept less than she deserves, and who knows exactly what she brings to the table. That energy attracts respect because self-worth is the loudest language you'll ever speak without opening your mouth. And I want you to catch this. Self-worth doesn't mean arrogance. It doesn't mean looking down on people or acting like you're better than everyone else. It means having a healthy respect for yourself, knowing that your time, your energy, and your love are valuable resources, and you don't give them to just anybody. It means being humble enough to love others, but wise enough to protect yourself. It's balance. A woman with self-worth can be soft, loving, and kind, but at the same time firm, discerning, and unshakable. That's powerful. The truth is, the way you see yourself sets the tone for how others will see you. If you act like you're second best, people will treat you like second best. If you carry yourself like an afterthought, people will treat you like one. But if you show up like you are the prize, like you are valuable, like you are enough, people have no choice but to treat you accordingly. And let me tell you, the right man will never be intimidated by that. The right man will respect it, admire it, and match it. Because real men respect women who respect themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, never forget this: boundaries without self-worth will crumble. But when you know your worth, those boundaries become unshakable. A woman who knows her value doesn't have to scream it, doesn't have to prove it, doesn't have to fight for it. She just lives it. And when you live it, respect follows naturally.